So, as we were seeing more about from hosts and services, right? So sometimes it might be required where you'll be having too many servers, and literally you cannot have the same dashboard or the web page to look into each thing. But at the same time, what will happen is you might have many servers on which you have to do same kind of checks. So in that case, what you can do is there are multiple grouping that you can do. So either you can group all the servers, or simply you can group all the services, so that you don't have to do checks multiple times, or you don't have to do it differently. And it'll be helpful when basically you're trying to view at some dashboard. So what I mean to say is, now like this, you have so many groups, so many servers that will be part of it. So rather than looking at it into individually, you can simply group the servers, and you can just have one dashboard like this, wherein you can have the complete list of how many servers are there based on a particular group. So in those cases, if you want to make a group of servers, then it's possible in Nagios. So how you do the grouping is very simple. Just like how we were defining a host or services, you have to define a host group, wherein when you're defining the host group, you simply say what is the name of the host group, and after that, what and all are the members. So when you say members, whatever servers that you have already added, you just keep an entry into all those things into this host group, so that when you go here as a host group, you'll be just seeing it. The same way when you try to put it for a service, you just define a service wherein here you simply say the host group name, so that for this host group, whatever you have specified, this service will be applicable. So that now instead of setting up a service for individual server, so like I said, if you have a service for ping, if you have a service for memory checking, for each server you have to define those 2 to 3 services again and again and again. So instead of that, what we can simply do is create a host group, and when you're defining a service, simply define the service by adding this line called host group. Instead of the host name, you simply say the host group and group, so that for all the servers what you see in the host group, this service will be applicable. So in that case, what you can do is you can pretty much reduce the time. If not, what will happen? Say you have 5 checks to be done for a server, and if you have 5 servers, then you have to repeat the same 5 checks or services 5 into 5, that is 25 times you have to define. So that is one of the way where you can reduce the time, and also when you are trying to viewing the dashboard respective to the management or someone who is trying to manage all the servers, right, it should be simple for them to have a look at it and get all the details. So let's try to do the same thing and see how it looks as a host group. So now if you see here, you have all the servers individually, right? Okay, now fine. So once again, if you go to the localhost.cfg, that is where all your host definition and service definitions will be present by default. So we can use the same. And now in that, what we'll do is we will be adding a host group. Okay, and if you see by default, it would be giving a host group template, and this is what just we saw. Now here, you just try to add your own host group what you want. If not, you can simply modify a new host group what you have put. Suppose say that it is defining already existing host group, and that is what you are seeing it here. Here you are seeing that there is a host group called Linux servers, and in that there is only one server, which is our local host. Now what we are trying to do is, let's try to create a new host group and add some servers to it. Okay, so okay, once you put the syntax here, the next thing is you have to specify the host group name. Okay, so here let's say test, and the alias, let's say test servers. Okay, now here is what you need to specify, what and all are the servers which you want to add. Okay, so say let's say localhost, then comma, we have our own server which we have added some time back, which means it is nothing but the localhost, wherein we are giving with a full name called localhost local domain. So that just to differ as if you are trying to put a new server, but it is going to be the same localhost. Okay, so once you have modified, in order to get into the dashboard, what we need to do is we need to basically restart your Nagios. Okay, and even before restarting Nagios, since we have modified something in the config file, what we need to do is we need to verify whether the configuration files changes are perfect or if there is any syntax error or not. Okay, so once again, how do you do it? Here. So you have to run the Nagios wherein you have to say verify. Okay. Okay, so what is this is? So this is the default CFG file which Nagios will be reading for the first time, right? When it runs. So only with starting with this CFG file, it will be reading all the other CFG files, whichever is present in your configuration. So in that case now it should have also read whatever is the configuration file that we modified. See, it goes through one by one, and now in that case we have modified the localhost CFG, so there is no syntax error or is though no problem from the configuration file what modifications we have done. So Nagios is saying it is completely fine. Okay, so now what we will do is we will simply restart the Nagios. So first let's stop and then start it. Okay, so now if you go here, refresh, and when you go to the host group, you see we created a new host group wherein it quickly gives us a reference about what and all are the servers that you added. So like this, rather than individually going here to the host and you want to know, this page will be a simple page where an engineer who is monitoring all the servers can just have. So like this, you can have multiple groups wherein in the groups you can have different servers. You can just quickly know. So your interest in the first level would be to know whether the servers are running or not, or whether the server is working or not. In that you can quickly know. And additionally, if you see, it also gives you the complete details about how many services that you have checked and what is the status. So if you want further, you can go with individually all these things, so that that will give you a simple one shot page wherein you can get all those things. Okay, so in case if not, you can use the grid format. It will just give you in a different format wherein it will give what and all are the checks that you are performing for it. Okay, so this is how you can practically make use of host groups, which would be very simple. And then the same thing, when you're defining the service, as I was saying, suppose if you have a service, now instead of using the host name and specify for each server, simply what you can do is you can replace the host name and you can put the host group name as the name and you give the name, so that now this service will be applied to all the groups what you have specified. So like that, you can group the services and you can group the hosts. So if you really think why we need this grouping, then it is all about ensuring that your configuration is as simple as possible. Because what will happen is, in reality, you would be having many number of servers that you have to monitor. So it's not just like one server or two servers. There'll be like more than 10 or 15. It depends on how many servers you're monitoring. So in that case, for each server, you might have to ensure that there are multiple checks that you have to do. So that means every check is nothing but a service in Nagios, right? So in that case, what you have to do, for each host, you have to first define what is the host, and then after that, you have to specify different services. As an example, like I said, if you have 5 services for a server, and if you have to check for 5 separate servers, then it is 5 into 5, 25 times you have to define the services. So instead of that, simply what you can do is you can define a host group wherein you can specify what and all are the servers that you want to add and ensure that you just use the service once again. And the next important thing is reusing the contents what you have. That is what you will be making use of the template, wherein when you try to reuse a template, you will ensure that whatever values that you always, I mean already you have, you can inherit it. Okay, and rather than reusing or rewriting many kind of many values, you can simply put it as an attribute or in macros and reuse it. Okay, so that is what the major thing in Nagios, because all the thing what you need to know is understand is the basics about how things are defined, and how you make it simple and how you try to work on it is all about how do you redefine it and use it simply. So in that case, the important files that you would be working is that's templates. Okay, so if you see, there are many predefined templates which defines the values. So all you have to do is try to reuse the existing values. So if you have to be a master in Nagios, the only thing is go through each and every configuration files and just try to understand what it is doing. Because unlike others, you are not actually going to write everything from the scratch. Everything is there. So all you need to know is how are we going to use them. Okay, so in that pretty much case, you just have to go through this files and try to understand what and all are present, because there are so many things which might be useful or might not be useful. So you literally you don't have to worry about those things which is not being used by you. But in a general case, you need to know few templates like whatever that's been used. Like so when you say when you've been using Linux server, then what and all are these things that has been there. So wherein if you see the important things is only these. Now, how frequently you want to notify and what kind of changes for which you need to notify. So that is what is the only important thing that you have to take care from Nagios. You getting it?